Next, I'd like to invite someone to the stage who we all know, our Executive Director, Adam Soltani. Adam Soltani is a graduate from the University of Central Oklahoma, where his studies focused on sociology and the development of an American Muslim identity. He has served the Muslim community in various capacities as a professional, including promoting and managing American Muslim artists, serving as an assistant director for outreach at the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, coordinating youth development programs at the Islamic Society of Edmond, and being one of the founding members of the Oklahoma chapter of CAIR. In addition to currently serving as the executive director of the Oklahoma chapter of CAIR, Soltani also serves as the chair of the Oklahoma Conference of Churches Religions United Committee. He currently resides in Oklahoma City with his wife and his wonderful 18-month-old son. Please help me in welcoming Adam Soltani.
Assalamu alaikum. You guys sound like you haven't had dinner yet. For those who aren't Muslim and who are here, you got to understand that when we say Assalamu alaikum, it's like a prayer. So when I say Assalamu alaikum, I fortunately have the power of prayer. The microphone picks up my greetings of peace, my prayers of peace upon all of you. But I need the Muslims in the room to return that. And I know you're hungry, but let's try a little bit stronger. Assalamu alaikum. That's beautiful. Alhamdulillah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Thank you all for coming. And we've been thanking you, and I'm going to thank you again. I'm going to thank each and every one of you, because without this community, CAIR would not be here. From the bottom of my heart, as a director of this organization, thank you for your support. Tonight, we want to focus on the positive. Day in and day out, many times we hear the negative stories. Day in and day out, as your executive director, I read the negative stories, and I don't always share them with you. Because I don't want us as a community to get depressed and to always dwell on the negative. But sometimes, indeed, it is hard. Sometimes it's hard when we hear stories like we heard at the first part of 2014, when a man attacked a woman in Tulsa because he thought she was Muslim. He attacked her physically, he attacked her verbally, and he attacked her property. It's hard sometimes to be positive when you hear stories about some of our elected officials holding anti-Muslim trainings at our state capitol, the People's House. It's hard to be positive when a mosque not far from this place was vandalized just a year ago in April 2013. Sometimes it's hard to be positive, but tonight we're going to focus on the positive. We do have challenges, but we've come a long way. I don't know if any of you realize this, but 2014 marks the 20th anniversary of CAIR in this country. I think for that we should give a round of applause. Indeed, CAIR was established in 1994 in Washington, D.C. by a man with a vision, Nihad Awad. When you hear that name and you think of that name, you should offer a prayer every time. It was because of his vision that CAIR exists across the nation. 20 years ago, his vision started out in one office with a telephone and a fax machine and a budget that if you and I saw it today would say this would never work. His vision allowed him to fly out to Oklahoma City in 1995 when the tragic incident of the Oklahoma City bombing shook our state. And he came out here and he defended the Muslim name and the faith when people were trying to drag it through the mud and blame our religion for that tragedy. He had the vision that led from one national chapter and the founding simultaneously of a chapter in San Francisco, starting out as 2 chapters in 1994. 20 years later, we are over 30 chapters here in the United States. This man had the vision. So tonight we want to focus on the positive, because indeed we've come a long way. We've come a long way when in 1994 there were only not more than 1,000 media stories about Ramadan in that month, our holy month. And now, in 2013, when we got the statistics back, over 54,000 stories throughout the nation about Islam and Muslims during the month of Ramadan. Before we founded CAIR in 2006, you can ask people like our dear Imam, Imad Chasi, or Saad Muhammad, or Sister Cheryl Siddiqui, who have been working effortlessly before CAIR even existed. You can ask them about the media coverage. We had media coverage, but alhamdulillah, due to the leadership of our national organization and our local board of directors, CAIR has been able to push our media presence to the point that last year we had over 2 million people view our stories about Islam and Muslims in broadcast media. Indeed, we have come a long way. And tonight we're going to talk about faith and freedom. And when I think about faith and freedom, I think about 3 things that we've been through in the last year. 3 things that give me faith and freedom and should give each and every one of us faith and freedom. As I mentioned, last year when the mosque was vandalized just down the street from us here, it was a tragic incident. It was heartbreaking to see the negative things that were graffitied on the wall and the negative pictures. Your heart would be broken. But what gives me faith and freedom, dear friends and dear supporters, is that when that happened, the interfaith community, many of you sitting here tonight came to the support of that mosque. Whether you know people who go there or not, all they had to hear was that it was a mosque. And it was our brothers and sisters in faith. As our Imam and Chasi says, our brothers from another mother. And they believe it. The Mayflower Church, I went to the mosque to meet with the Imam at that time, and I went to him and I said, what can we do? How can we help you? And he was already in tears of joy. I said, how can you be crying? You're happy. You're telling me they're tears of joy, but you were just vandalized. He said, yes, I know. But right before you showed up, the Mayflower Congregational Church from down the road stopped by and handed us these flowers. And that, dear brothers and sisters, the fact that we in Oklahoma can work together and support each other, regardless of our faith, gives me faith and freedom. We should also remember that when many of you heard, and I mentioned just before this, about the anti-Muslim training at the Capitol, that was a very challenging thing that we as an organization worked on. It was one of my most challenging moments as an executive director. But it gives me faith and freedom, and I want to tell you why. Because when I was there, and the people who had hatred in their heart and didn't want to see me there, and didn't want to see Muslims trying to represent themselves properly, and wanted to spread misinformation about our faith, Representative Mike Shelton, who's sitting here right now, escorted me to the House gallery, ensured me I would be allowed to sit there, to listen in on what they were saying, so that we could be prepared to educate the larger community. In addition to that, the media on that day came and covered that story unbiasedly and reported the truth. And this, dear brothers and sisters, should give us all faith and freedom. But I don't think that's enough. There's one thing that happened last year that should not only give us faith and freedom, but should instill our faith in the freedoms of this country so much so that we will never doubt it. Many of us know in 2010, our state legislators proposed an anti-Sharia bill. And many of us are aware that 70% of Oklahoma voters voted for that. It was going to become law, essentially turning the Muslim community into second-class citizens. And alhamdulillah, all praise is due to God that we received a leader at that time that we needed, Munir Awad. And all of you, I think, here know him or know of him. And we need to pray and thank God for him and his family and their support during that time, because he took the initiative with the backing of this organization and the board of directors, and with the allies, ACLU of Oklahoma, and with our attorney, Michael Salem, and filed a lawsuit against the state of Oklahoma to protect our rights as Muslims in the state. And CAIR-Oklahoma carried this case for 3 years. And one thing we couldn't talk about before, but we can talk about now, is when Munir left, we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this case? And when he asked me, he said, Adam, you don't have to say yes. This is the first day I'm sitting in his office and I'm hired, I'm working for CAIR. He said, Adam, you don't have to say yes to this. You're my friend, I can't force you to say yes. He said, but can you and Imam and Shasi take over the lawsuit when I leave, so that this legislation, or this challenge against the anti-Sharia legislation will not die? And I said, Munir, you're asking me a question that yes can be my only answer. And me and Imam and Shasi took it up. And behind the scenes we worked day in and day out with Michael Salem, who you'll meet later on tonight. And this should never allow us to doubt in our faith and freedoms. And I'm going to end with this. In August 15, 2013, I got a phone call and I was driving. And I never got a phone call that had caused me to pull over before, but I had to when I got this. It was our attorney, Gadir Abbas at CAIR in Washington, D.C. And he said, we won the case. And I said, what case? Because I wasn't expecting this to come so quickly. He said, we won State Question 755. I said, hold on. I said, hold on, I have to pull over. I pulled over and I said, repeat that to me one more time. He said, we won the case. I said, okay, tell me more details because I still don't believe you. And it wasn't until the next day that I heard from Michael Salem that it was confirmed and it hit the papers. But dear brothers and sisters, friends, people of faith and people of the community, the fact that as a Muslim community we could stand up and not only fight for our rights under the Constitution of the United States, but fight for the First Amendment rights of all Oklahomans, gives me and should give all of us faith and freedom. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.